like you say, people are stubborn. You talk to them like
Gria po hook.
wall, and
We're gonna head north.
figure out.
Hey, hi, ya, hey, ya, hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hey, ya, ya, yo. Hey, ya, hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Fort Beck Community College, Ukiepino, yo, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, wata, pepe, hagi, ktabi, ichachi, ya, bino, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya, hey, ya, hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hey, ya, yo. Hey, hi, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Fort Beck Community College, Ukiepino, yo, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, wata, pepe, hagi, ktabi, ichachi, ya, bino, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya, hey, ya, hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, ya, yo. Hey, ya, hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hey, ho, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Fort Beck Community College, Ukiepino, yo, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, wata, pepe, hagi, ktabi, ichachi, ya, bino, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya, hey, ya, hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, ya, yo. Hey, ya, hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya, hey, hey, ho, hey, yo, hey, yo. Fort Beck Community College, Ukiepino, yo, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, wata, pepe, hagi, ktabi, ichachi, ya, bino, hey, yo.
Oh, how metakupi. Yushke wan chian kampi chantewastea. Yuhana pe chuzapi. Ake Elijah Hopkins demie. Wana wa chinja wa kapa unspe wankantuya. Dechia Diane ya hipido metakupi. Hello, relatives, and welcome to the Buffalo Chasers podcast. I'm Elijah Hopkins. We are at week number 30 of the Buffalo Chasers podcast. We have a few announcements to make, but before we do so, I want to again acknowledge Dexy Earl and Dexy Tommy, and I ask Dexy Tommy if you would share a prayer with us in a good way, get it started off in a good way like that.
Daya ichanu tushka. How mitaki epidaya ya hipi ushimalo kchewi chashamielo. Ambe tukile michante tawa ke na hana pechuza pelo. Hohe chaje mita wamnishage. Doba ima chiapi. Ushimalo omakiana wachekia ambe tukile. Aha he antukashila na wakantanka. Tateria doba. Unchimakana makaina. Nakumitaki epi wanagi makpea ktayage. Ushiake nitaki epi unchimakao mani wayazapi. Na mitaki epi unchimakao mani chante yoksicho mani owichakiapo ushi wichalapo. Tukashila wakantanka naha. Oyate oyasi chanku luta aga omani owichakiapo ushi wichalapo. Gixiapo mitaki epi unuksalapi na wichakshalapi na hawakayajapi. Hokshila pi winchinchala na koshkapi we koshkapi chanku washte upin we chosani upi okia wa ushi wichalapo. Kiksiapo mitaki pi agichita oyate ki zuya ekta na hawachasha bile na wiapile chanku washte upi okia wa ushi wichalapo. Tukashila wakantanka ekchewi chasha miala ushi mala. Dagonis lanoish ni naha omakia naha ampetukile. Pila chichi apelo ampetu washte ma ho mitake oasi wa makashka oasi.
Oh, my Dex. Again, beautiful prayer. For those of you that are joining us out there on the Facebook feed, the live stream, just a reminder, give us a share, give us a like. That way you get your name in the weekly drawing for some Cho items like Dexy's jacket he's rocking over there. Every week we try and do at least one jacket and one Kindle Fire. So we will make that announcement next week, week 30. For last week, the drawing winners for the jacket is none other than Jerica Olson. Congratulations, Jerica. Winner. And then we also have a Kindle Fire tablet. The winner for that is Angela Miller. Winner. Angela. You're all winners.
Getting them sound effects in there just right. Good job, Tushka. I like that.
That's how we do. So again, to retrieve those items, Jerica and Angela, just get a hold of us over at Student Services. You can call 406-768-6370. We'll let them know that you did receive those. You can come over and pick them up during business hours, or just let them know where they can mail them out to, and they'll definitely do that. So again, congratulations to the winners. And for those of you that are joining us on the Zoom call, thank you for joining us. We have numerous students on the call here. And so, but again, weekly, the mission of our podcast is just to do our part to spread some language or some culture, and to really have some good, healthy discussions around mental health issues. And we have some really awesome leaders within our respective communities. Really weekly, day in, day out, they live this way, and then they share these things with us, and they really enhance our podcast. So we really want to thank both of these individuals for joining us today. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Dex, if you want to give you the reins there, wherever you want to go with it. But I believe we're leaders.
All right. Good job there, Tushka. Oh, man. Beautiful day today. It's kind of it kind of feels like spring today. It's all coming around. Everything's kind of getting moist again. Had a nice little bit of a rainfall, not so dry, but at the same time, kind of looking forward to that golfing weather to come back. But again, all my relatives, welcome here to our podcast. We really enjoy the fact that you're really getting some good feedback out in the communities across country, and getting some texts and stuff from people really enjoying our podcast, because again, it's nothing but just shared information, and we'd like to keep it as general as that. I was talking to one of my teachers here Tashunga Saba, and he called me and we was talking back and forth, and he said, we got to really be careful about the information that we share. He said, because, what we've learned in that old school perspective is something that a lot of people are seeking but don't know how to access it, eh? And they're all seeking it for their own personal reasons. Many of them are seeking it to expand their mind, expand their spirituality, strengthen themselves by whatever means, as it has done for individuals like my older brother here, Earl, and of course, Shunga Saba, and many of my teachers. Again, it makes you strong in character, helping us to understand the importance of these virtues we were talking about. Wisdom, compassion, empathy, all those good things, those virtues that we need to exercise to strengthen ourselves. And we need to understand the importance of strengthening oneself, not for our sake to dominate or control or take over anything, but to strengthen ourselves from the inside out for the sake of helping others, pursuing these things that would broaden our worldview to help us understand the importance of our personal purpose and dedication as we walk this Mother Earth in preparation to someday soon go be with our relatives on the other side. And as we do that now, it's important to understand that as cautious as we are as it relates to protecting and respecting the protocols that are involved in this abstract learning process, which is experiential teaching. It's a personal walk. I could say that. It's something of personal choice. And I was sharing with my older brother that I come this far as a result of an act of love, the love that I had for my father. I quit drinking, quit doing drugs. And then, of course, the decisions I made were based on prayer. And that's because I was praying about this stuff and I asked for guidance and direction from this higher power. They provided it to me through my father, Mato Pewaka, and then that direction, that guidance that he gave me based on the graciousness of his teachings. And so with all that understanding, we realize on a personal level, we're wishing to represent the strength that we're acquiring so that we're more able to be generous with it based on compassion and empathy, caring, sharing, loving, so we can give it away unconditionally in a good way. And so we remain apolitical and apersonal in a spiritual manner, but yet we don't deny ourselves a political agenda or a personal agenda. We just don't bring it to the spiritual arena where there's no room for that here, because again, we're doing this for others and we're not wishing to convince them or make them believe that we're telling them. And like I say, I'm going to speak to you from my heart because I wish to affect you. If I spoke to you from my mouth, I'd be wishing to impress you. So there's a difference there. So that's why we say those things. And again, understanding the importance of individuals that we depend on and rely on, that have walked this red road and gained that understanding. Chanku Luta Aga Omani, like my Chie here, Nicha Ole. He's gained that experience. He understands the importance of this direction and guidance, and he realizes the graciousness in which he provides it, because he's a he's a teacher, and he's one of my teachers. He's one of your teachers now. And in that, he graciously shares these things as he deliberately understands his conversations as he shared with us. So think about these things as you've developed yourself, how to utilize these virtues, how to apply them in your daily life without imposing or infringing on anybody else's life, their life or their choices or their decisions, but just to share them in a good way. And if we base them on this personal experience that we chose to take on, then hey, I think it's going to be better for everybody, and especially that diversity that it represents, that uniqueness that we utilize is going to become an enhancement and enrichment for the sake of the growth of our children. And of course, our children represent our future. What do you think of that, Chie? What about your thoughts on that? I just wanted to share that with you because I know you've been doing this for donut years, man, and you always have an opportunity to get that reciprocated respect, especially from young people, and you've developed that rapport with them so that they can understand the graciousness in which you share these cultural values through song and through making stuff, even artistically, the therapeutic value in that, drums, be it drums or medicine wheels, and you utilize the language to apply some of this abstract learning to help it become more personal for that individual. What are your thoughts on that, Chie? Ushimalo makia.
Well, everything's about balance, how you conduct yourself. So just before you asked me to say something, I was ready to holler out the door at my grandkid and his buddy because they're throwing a football and banging the walls. I was going to get up and say, knock it
off. Yeah.
And I caught myself again,
Oh.
For kids having fun, you just don't realize what's going on. But I always reflect on what my mom used to say. And it wasn't until about 5th or 6th grade, she used to always say, La Colia. And I thought about exactly what she meant by that. She said, you need to speak in your language, La Colia. Talk in your language. And that she said, you gather your thoughts in your mind and how you feel about as a Lakota, and then you put it into English. So oftentimes we forget that that's what's going on with a lot of our elderly people that have grown up with the language. It takes them a while to gather the thoughts before they share that.
Yeah.
They share their meanings of many things. So patience is part of the process. You have to really be patient to be able to learn from what they've experienced, and that's what it is. Life is experience. You go back to the many years now that you've gone through, and you think back about how to implement all these values and all these life experience to the kids. They come up with questions that you wouldn't think they would come up with. And one question one of my students asked was, Mr. Bullitt, did you ever drink? And I said, oh, Miniatka. I said, yeah, I drink lots of water and try to be healthy. Oh, no, they said, have you ever drink to get drunk? And so I said, yeah, I've been there. I said, it's been a long time now. I said, I couldn't control it. I said, it was too powerful. It was only till I met Iktomi through the books and texts and stories that I started to understand how powerful he is, how he can help you. And it reflects upon a mural that I saw in treatment, and it showed a fifth. And you all know what that looks like, right? The label had a spider on it.
Yeah.
Up to that point, I didn't really understand the control of something like that had on me. And I said, why is that in that mural where you have all these symbols of spirituality? You have the Wahpokean, you have the, Hochokan, Chamakan, and all that stuff in a mural. And here's this, this whiskey bottle there, and it's got a spider on it. I was thinking about that. I said, why is my mind focused on that right now?
Yeah.
Why is that so symbolic? And they have to put that in there for a reason.
Yeah.
So every day I come back and I'd sit in front of that big mural in treatment, Sergeant's Bluff, Iowa. And I'd sit there and I contemplated looking at that, and I'd say, by golly, I said, I think they're talking about me. And how I do not have that balance.
Yeah.
And then I progressed from there and started realizing, I said, there's some people that told me about this. It didn't come in as Iktomi, but it came in as directions. You know, like Wiochbiatakya, where the sun goes to rest. Or Waziatakya, the direction of the pines. And then, you know, Wiohiapatakya, where the sun rises.
Yeah.
And then Itokagataka, the duality of life.
Yeah.
Start catching on. And it wouldn't have happened if I didn't have patience. And then requiring that patience puts you into the next level, your next step. Well, how do I change all of that? What do I have to do to find that balance? Because every day we're confronted by some issue that tries to put us on that negative road, what many call the black road.
Yeah.
All right. And then, so finding that and then realizing that our language also teaches that. Everything you say is positive. If you want to make it negative, you throw a negative marker now.
Yeah.
You know? So even within our own language, you have to question the balance and the, how would you call it, the inner sanctum of our language. So it's very sacred. You have to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's everything that comes with it. Honesty, humility, all that goes into what you're about to say and how you're going to present it. So oftentimes you've got to find that harmony that's there. I remember one time I was at the Cannonball celebration and I had just come back from treatment. And so I'm sitting over there and I wasn't on any drum or anything like that. I just went over to watch and see people and see friends and stuff and have a taco. And a community member out there was looking around and he had tobacco, you know. And all of a sudden he looked towards me and instantaneously I thought he's coming to ask me to pray in public.
Yeah.
You know? And so as soon as he went around the announcer stand, I got on my seat and I went over the hill out to the south and Echikuta Naji.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I didn't establish that balance,
Yeah.
that humility, that wachwala, that peace, that harmony that you have to maintain. Because speaking in public was not quite my, how would you say it, my
Forte.
yeah, forte at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was still afraid of emotions. And so
Still
after I heard
acting
somebody else
true.
praying, I heard somebody else praying, then I walked back to where I was sitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I still remember the individual that was going to ask me to pray. And another time I'm sitting there joking around with the boys and I'm on a drum this time. And here, this guy tapped me on the shoulder. I looked up and here the arena director said, he said, Earl, he said, can you say our opening prayer? I looked at him, I said, you know, one of the things that you have to take into consideration, he said, there are a lot of people here that need to experience this. He said, you go and ask all these elderly. He said, ask them to do that honor. He said, Earl, he said, I did. He said, you're the oldest one here.
Gotcha.
So there's the ability to get to experiencing that.
Oh.
So I'm able to get up and do what's asked of me. So sometimes it takes a long time for these old guys to say their prayers because they have to interpret their own language.
Yeah.
No matter what language it is,
Huh?
they have to translate. So that process takes a little while.
Yeah.
So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that life, you know, is experience.
Yeah.
How you remember all of that stuff is how you associate the words that we talked about in the last few weeks. You know, it can be legos, very powerful. And once you establish that, you realize that whether you realize it that at the present time or that you are doing those things.
Yeah.
You know, and then once you establish that constant daily routine, it's an automatic thing.
Yeah.
You wake up and say, Wopila Kanta.
Hmm.
You go to bed, you think about your relatives and friends and how they're doing, and you say another Wochip,
Oh.
and it just becomes part of your life.
Mhm.
And so who knows, like when we reach our age, who knows that may be the final thing you ever do for somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know. And Chia, what we need to understand as we apply ourselves towards this opportunity that we're taking advantage because of COVID, we're concerned about everybody. We're wishing to share this with everybody because, again, remember that one song, Oganashmaya? They said,
Yeah.
this man's coming this way with a pipe. Don't let him fool you.
He may be fooling
he
you.
may be fooling you.
Yeah.
And so in that process, we need to understand that we're not acting true per se. When you went over that hill and you were ducking down, hiding, that's not because you were afraid of it, because you didn't want to disrespect them with something that somebody could probably do it better. But when your opportunity
Exactly.
arose,
Yeah.
you came out and you did that and you helped them, because that's our intent. So people need to realize a lot of this behavior is a learned behavior of people that were forced to assimilate. And so, they say a lot of things like marijuana or is a gateway drug, blah, blah, blah. But in Indian people, I often, and this is coming from an Indian to others to give them understanding of how we behave or how we act, or our intention is always well meant as it relates to Dakota, Lakota, Nakona, Oyateki. They need to understand that our pursuit is Wolakota, Wowakla. Yeah, but they don't understand that, because that's our base and our foundation. That's what we're pursuing. But the biggest gateway, if you want to call it a drug or whatever, a gateway experience that Indian people are realizing because of that learned behavior is historical or cultural trauma.
Yep.
Trauma. And see, and
Colonization.
that's what we need to recognize inwardly. And that's where this healing precipitates from the inside out. It's in our heart to be able to step up. And so that's why I call the silver lining of this virtual experience that we're going through. And we're trying to maintain some sense of respect as it relates to the integrity of our cultural ways, with a very heartfelt cry, and some call it prayer. Me, I call it heartfelt cry to our Creator, so He can pity us as we're trying to adapt to a new way to appreciate this wound space, this opportunity to share or teach others in a good way. And the people need to understand that our ability to overcome this is right there. It's right there, like you said, Brother Matt. You've seen that in that picture, in that mural. And again, it's all as a result of historical trauma, cultural trauma that's affected us. But the answer is right there in front of our nose, and we're looking for the answer way over there. It's right there in front of us. And my dad would tell me that all the time, and he says, right here in front of you, Gary. You gotta look for it. Quit looking way over there. And so
I had gone to a sweat for with my adopted father.
Mhm.
We went to a hookah,
Oh.
We exchanged pipes in a Sundance, and became my father. I lost my dad when I was 16 because of alcoholism. Anyway, he asked, and I sat outside for the sweat lodge for 2 years. And when they sang in the inside, I just sang along with them. And I took care of the rocks, I took care of the fire, and the water, and aged and all that stuff. I did it because it had to be done. They're older men.
Yeah.
So I'm participating as best I can. So I'd sit outside and I'd make sure that I'm ready to open the door when it's needed.
Mm-hmm.
I hear them singing. So in time, I started hearing those songs that they were singing in there. And I started singing along with them loud enough so they could hear me in there.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they asked me, they said to come in, So that was my first experience, of, how would you say, being sensitized to what was going on, not immediately, not just getting that immediate gratification, but I was being exposed to it slowly.
Yeah.
And I think about it now, is that there was no other better way for me to grasp it, because there were many things I had to change.
Mm-hmm.
The way I talk to people, the way I, how would you say it, confront my misses, or things that I would do that would upset my kids or something. That balance was slowly coming, you know. And
Yeah.
so what I learned from it was that things are going to happen to you that are for a purpose and meant to be. It just doesn't happen overnight. And so what I learned from it was to understand that the opportunities there today is, it's sad to say, but we're losing so many of our elderly people, and we don't, how would you say it? We don't, some are recording like what we're doing, and that's the right way. It's a good way, but we still have a lot of people that, when you talk about being ingrained, talking about behavior modification, colonization, and all those things, there was a system that was in place, totally designed. And so a lot of us are still going through that.
Yeah.
There are still habits that I reflect upon.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a good one. One of my grandchildren just has a hard time keeping the room clean. I said, you're at that age now. I said, you shouldn't have to tell you these things.
Yeah.
Keep your room clean and fix your bed. When I went to boarding school, I said, we had to get up at this time. The whistle blew, we had to get in line, all walk to breakfast. I said, all walk back our beds. We come and inspect our beds. They throw a coin on there, it has to bounce. And I'm using this as years ago that I learned how to make a bed.
Yeah.
So some of this ingrained behavior still lingers in our thoughts.
Yeah.
So when you say that it's this process of that in time, that eventually that'll go away, but it's discussions.
Mm-hmm.
It's being able to talk about it.
Communicate.
Find a venting area where you can talk about those things. And so that is of a sacred nature.
Oh.
Because when those things come into play and it really comes down to it, there's a place for it. Mm-hmm. And I found that in our inipis, in our sweats and ceremonies, And so I see it as an opportunity for others to realize, to not to be afraid. Don't be scared to participate in these events, even if you just look on.
Yeah, that's all.
Just be there and listen and take it on and enjoy what's around you, and enjoy that. Just even if it's just for a day or a moment,
I had one of my.
Don't go to these events with Tommy Christian.
Yeah, don't ever do it. One of my.
When they brought that puppy's collar around
this guy. Did you bring your salties? Those two white ladies are standing in front of us, and Earl said, I'm gonna get right behind the ear. That's the best place. That nice and fat, that girl will start backing up. Jeez.
So sometimes our teasing will get out of hand.
Get carried away.
That woman here, she's going.
Right behind the ear. I'm gonna suck on that eyeball and get it, and I'm gonna chew it real good. Holy crap, he's getting worse and worse, this guy.
Really smokers. But anyway, that's what I'd like to encourage people on this, is that, and it's research. It's looking at how you break down words and how you absorb words and how you put them into your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so they always say wa'ushila, and I heard that word so many times when we were growing up. Wa'ushila. So being able to take that word and practice it and do it, it's quite the it becomes natural.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes too, it gets overshadowed by people's needs. Let's say somebody asks me to compose a song like goodness of people's hearts,
Mm-hmm.
I get a blanket or like a satin quilt, And one of my daughters said, "Can I have the next one you get?" I said, "No, if you want it, yeah." I said, "Because I can't sleep on it." I said,
yeah.
"Whenever I lay out, I slide off the bed."
Laying on the floor.
So being able to balance all of that, provide, but
Yeah.
you have to tell how I got it, what I did to get it,
Yeah.
so you can appreciate it. Yeah, you can take it, but you gotta respect it.
Yeah.
I will, because I will. So it's a learning, teaching.
Yeah, and that opportunity to receive gifts like that, and people, they want to look at the superficial, but they don't realize when we receive these things, they don't know where they go. Eh?
Yeah.
It provides for us. Maybe I sell mine for $100. Those are worth like $300. So I'll just kind of sell it for 100 just to get coffee or gas money or poker money, gambling money, or some $100. Eh? But that's because they need it. You don't need it, do you? Crazy how many blankets you need. And we do stuff like that, and people don't understand the importance of that. And the intent was to bring comfort to our family, and it does if it provides us coffee or gas or maybe a little food or something like that. That Star Quilt, it goes into stuff like that. You know, it's important. I had like what you were saying about sitting around outside the sweat lodge. I had one of my teachers, is an old Cree man. He spoke Nakona, and he spoke fluent Cree as well. His name was Solomon Stone. Outside of his house, he maintained a sweat lodge. He would, they'd call him, we're going to have a sweat. He'd get all the fire, the rocks, everything like that. And he'd even carry the rocks in there for them. But he never, ever went inside, ever. As old as he was, and I think he passed away at 75 or something like that, but he always maintained that sweat lodge. He kept it clean, kept everybody, and they wouldn't take advantage of him, you know, but because they knew, but that was his purpose and dedication. He said, "I love taking care of you boys because I know what you're doing in there." And he would sit outside like you did, eh? And he'd sing along with them. But he never went inside, not because he was afraid, but because that was just his place, and never had to worry about a rock man or getting water or anything like that. But Solomon Stone, boy, that guy was a very humble man.
I think I've seen that man before.
You probably have. You probably
He
have.
used to have a red jacket on.
Yeah, and he was a bus driver up in North Battleford, for Dona many years, and we used to go stay with him. Me and my dad would go over there and stay with him. Oh, he's a crazy guy. Just say, and he would announce. You might have seen him during his announcing because he's really crazy. And I'd visit with William, his brother, and we kind of missed that guy because he was so crazy and just jovial, sort of a fellow, but very important to follow the protocol. And that's why I think he maintained the rocks and how he carried them in the altar and looked after that, because he was really into the protocol, make sure everything was done just right. But
right now, this area, it's hard to find rocks.
Yeah.
It's hard to find wood.
Yeah.
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 And then when you do find something that it's pretty expensive, because you're getting really rare, you know.
Earl, Chia, do you remember long ago, not that long ago, and 10, 20 years ago, sweats were just few and far between, just when they were needed, remember? But it was mostly we used the pipe, remember? We'd go do a pipe ceremony in lieu of a sweat lodge or something like that. We just all go, and the old guys would gather, and I'm gonna have a pipe ceremony. Everybody would come over there and help him sing, and he'd fill his pipe for the family. They'd go, and the family, wherever house you're at, they would feed you, and everything went good. But everybody had almost every home had a pipe. Oh, not every home, but and if you didn't have one, you'd take yours and you'd go help them out. They would ask for prayers. They'd bring cloth and tobacco and a little bit of gas money, nothing make you rich, but and the pipe was the main thing. And I don't know where that went by the wayside, but
I can remember a time when they used to make donations to visitors and relatives that came afar.
Yeah.
But it would take place outside the arena.
Yeah.
It wouldn't come out front and do this, shake hands and
very private, or semi-private, I guess.
Yeah, in a spoken language.
Yeah.
It was, wiggly. only chapters in the Traya,
Yeah.
Mani Chiliuna, only chapters.
Yeah.
So they would meet in the back and they would shake
Yeah.
hands. And we
What's
should
what's
try to
that
go
word they use for that bundle? Remember, they used to tie it up in a sheet, and when they'd have giveaways, they wouldn't show it off the way. What was that they called it? That bundle.
Oh, geez, you got me down on that one.
Remember, there's a word for it. They'd tie it up, that sheet with all these goods, all the staples, the food, and maybe a gunner in there, and the blankets and everything. But they wouldn't open it up until
Yeah.
they got back to camp. There's a word for it, and I forgot that word
Well,
too.
the knockout will probably be something part of it.
Yeah.
But
No, it was something.
so there's probably a special word for it. But see,
Yeah.
we forgot that too, you know.
Yeah.
We don't
That's
use
what
it, we lose it.
I was trying to think of it the other day, and I couldn't think of it. But there's a word that, especially for that bundle, that they would use, because they wouldn't show off their giveaway. They'd wait. They said, "Don't open it till you get back to camp." Then when you get to camp, they'd untie it, and oh, great! And then they'd share with their neighbors, the ones camped next to them. Here's some of this, and so that bundle went a long ways. But that's that generosity or that gratitude. Yeah,
I always
it's all a
remember
part of
that
it.
because when I start seeing that, I wonder how that came about. Where now everything's done, like everything's done at the powwow.
Yeah.
And
Out in the open. Yeah.
yeah, and then the thing of it is that when you do namings and plumes and feathers, and that needs to take place at the home.
Yeah.
You know, you don't take it out to the, and I suppose it's because it's convenient for people who travel in. That's changed.
Yeah.
But to me, the way it used to be done was they have all that stuff at home, and then they would do the honoring or the song and the celebration.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was asked that about in my family, I said, we need to do all this at home.
Uh-huh.
The feeding and invitations and all that stuff. So that kind of used to work out pretty good for us.
Then all they'd need to do at the powwow is just to honor song, if they would
Yeah.
choose to, if they'd like to. Yeah.
Donate
kinda
to
like that,
visiting
yeah.
drums or donate to travelers like that.
Yeah.
But, the ceremony itself needs to.
You know,
be a little
Chia,
more-
Chia, it's important based on this venue, the way we're applying this ability to understand oneself from within, it's even more important to our non-Indian relatives to understand the way we think, the way we do things, and not to take it on and be an Indian per se, but just be a spiritual person, because that's what our value system is based on. But it's even more important to them because, again, it's we're trying to intervene in that, what you were saying earlier, that lack of communication. We need to learn how to communicate and cross those barriers. We kept it to ourselves, and is it a detriment? Well, that's questionable, but we're just trying to protect it from being exploited, eh? And like my dad would say, well, those ones, they want to learn it, then who knows if they're going to use it right or not. He said, but if they don't use it right, it won't work for them anyway. He said, so always just pray that someday it works for them. That's how you pray without criticizing.
Power of choice,
judges.
yeah. Power of choice, like I was going to tell you about this experience I had. I was in the sweat the night before, and then my daughter, Terry, who you met, you know.
Yeah, well, yeah. My niece.
She was getting her first communion.
Uh-huh.
And so I went to church with her. And being baptized in a Catholic church and all that stuff, there's a lot of the stuff I don't understand yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm sitting like that, and it's time for communion. And she said, come on, Dad. She said, out there, she said, go to communion with me.
Yeah.
I looked at her, I said, I'm supposed to do an act of contrition.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to do this. I said, I haven't done any of that. And she looked at me, she said, Dad, she said, out there, she said, you purified yourself last night, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
I said,
Too.
yeah. I said, yeah. So I stood up and I went through it,
Oh, watch that.
you know. So I participated in the body of Christ. But when it got to the Manisha, I was a little hesitant because I hadn't had a drop of alcohol for many, many years, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so this symbolizes the blood of Christ, you know. So right then and there, I'm challenged again, you know, whether I taste that, what I got drunk on for the first time in my life,
Yeah.
dark port, gee. And I had to make a decision. Well, this is of a sacred nature, then, you know, this is a symbolic and it's the blood of Christ. It's part of her communion. So she wants me to participate. So I put my lips to the cup and tasted the blood of Christ.
Oh.
And that's the last time I ever tasted mini Shah again.
Big red nose sitting there, big
And
red
so our
nose.
challenges come that way.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's these young kids that remind you
Yeah.
of these things, you know. And your mind is so busy with other things that you forget the simplicity of life, you know.
You purified yourself the night before. You have every right to be there. And, you know, you're strong enough to maintain that mini Shah now. Keep it in perspective, you know, and that's what it needed. And
so you learn something every time, you know. I listen.
Yeah.
I enjoy people's wisdom, you know.
Yeah.
My other granddaughter was singing a piece in the crossover. She got a nice voice, so she was singing that. So her mother and I hurried to get there. We were running late. We had to park way down the street, and it was late. Got to the church, and it was packed. It was just full of people, you know. And so we looked around here. There was 2 seats. I said, "There's 2 seats over there." She said, "Let's go." So we went and sat down. I was on the outside pew, and she was in the middle. And there was an elderly woman sitting in front of us. And this elderly man come, and before he sat down, he bent his knee. Genuflect, I think they call it. And I looked at him. I said, I said, "I think we're supposed to do that before we sat down." And she said, "Don't worry about it." She said, "Look at all the statues." So I looked around in the church, and here they're all covered up. You know, all the past, what do they call it? Crossover.
Yeah.
All the, you know, the Mary and Christ, they were all crossed up with sheets. I didn't see that before. She said, "Don't worry about it." She said, "They didn't see us anyway." But you know why he genuflects? It's to honor the chalice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Didn't tell us those things in boarding school.
You bow down to that. Yeah.
No, you just
break your knee. Yeah. Break your knee. They call it. Yeah.
But I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Now I know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when we were in boarding school, it was a totally different scenario, you know.
Just made you do it. Don't know why or nothing. Just made you do it.
Supposed to say God. So who made you? My mom and dad said that.
That one girl, she said she was brought up by her grandma, and she must have asked her grandma who made her. She said she didn't know what the grandma didn't know what to tell her, so she said, "Oh, my girl, I made you out of oatmeal." And then one time the priest comes into the classroom, you know, you got to stand up and say, "Good morning, Father." Everybody's got to do it. And I sit down. Then he asks questions, catechism questions. He asked that one girl. He said, "And who made you?" And she was just shy. She kind of got scared. She said, "Oh, my grandma made me out of oatmeal." No. She's supposed to say, "God made me." Really big Indians.
We were kind of, how would you say, ingrained with so much influence from things that we were small, even down to our speaking, our language, you know. Things are like, everybody thought Pusina was a Lakota word. That's not a Lakota word. Pusina is supposed to be a
cat.
Yeah. But really means Pusimana.
Pusimana.
Smells like cat urine.
Smells like cat urine.
Pusimana.
Yeah.
But anyway, having
so what do you call cat? Igmu or what?
Yeah. Yimut Khanka on that route.
Bobcat.
Whoa, somebody's battery is running out.
Dago.
Might be me.
What, you still there? You plugged in?
Yeah, it says close. It says, "One of you guys get my battery on."
Yeah.
Got so many wires laying around out there. I don't know what those.
Well, we still see you good, still hear you good, so.
Yeah, it's clear. Nice and clear.
Still.
This is really a good hookup. I wish I'd gotten into this before. I would have done a lot more things. Like there's still some songs I'd like to record before time goes on.
And then which call works good for you, eh? That copier, you
Yeah,
got that all hooked up?
got that going. That's
Yeah.
so I don't know. I don't want to lose the signal. But you have to unplug something.
So Toshka, Elijah, you look like you're just listening. What did you hear us say? What you kind of give us an overview? Yeah. Hey.
Well, I think patience was the main thing, and balance, right? And so if I'm a student and I'm trying to incorporate what you guys are sharing with us, I'm reflecting back on the virtues
Blended around too much.
we talked about, and really trying to break apart those words too, because I'm kind of a language warrior nerd, trying to do my best to learn. And so when you guys break apart these words, I think it'll be helpful for us that are learning, apply those, and
Connect that one.
really to have a lot of patience with ourselves, I think, because even me, I get a little ahead of myself sometimes, and sometimes we get frustrated. So I really appreciate you guys reflecting back on some of your experience, because I find myself doing that too, getting frustrated at home or whatever it is. I think that's that balance and trying to be aware of those things and those virtues, and I think that's super helpful.
And then in that growth that you're experiencing, just you, Elijah, Toshka, on a personal level, can you see the effects of historical or cultural trauma affecting that decision-making process? That thought, see,
Yeah, like even we talked about another podcast about cognitive dissonance.
yeah.
There's also cultural dissonance, where we have two different cultures,
Absolutely, yeah.
and how do we navigate that? And
Yeah.
like with technology and stuff, we have even more access both ways, right? And so then it compounds our challenges.
Yeah.
Or like, and then but being a father too, and trying to be more responsible, trying to rein some of those things in. And because when I listen to you guys, it's like practice what you preach type thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I think in order to give something, you got to experience it and you got to know it in order for it to have value. For my kids,
understand it, probably be a better word.
Understand, yeah. So that's kind of how I'm trying to approach this stuff and integrate it to my personal walk. So for sure, hopefully our students are.
Yeah, and that's what we're wishing to convey under these podcasts, with the understanding of the virtual experience is also addressing the needs of this COVID effect, on our ability, our need as human beings to be sociable to some degree, and to be able to, like my older brother was saying, communicate some of these differences, not trying to prove anybody wrong, or this is the only way that. No, we're not trying to do that. We're wishing to help them understand the importance of that diversity that exists out there, based on our ability to communicate, and we can maintain that in spite of having the social distance and got to stay home and all this, but we can still look after ourselves in a good way through the podcast that we're experiencing, and we'll do that for our students tomorrow at 2:00. But I think that's important. I'm just wishing, and I know Chie is wondering too, are we actually getting across to those, and maybe they can convey that in the chat, if in fact we are getting the point across, and we don't want to, how do you say, dumb down it, because it's not fair to us to disrespect our cultural value, because that's the way that oppression works. That's how it starts, eh? So we got to understand the importance of that respect and reciprocating that respect to those that are capable of doing and thinking for themselves. That's the key component of critical thought, is to understand you have a mind. It's God-given, and it's a blessing, and you need to utilize it. And the expansions of your mind is far beyond anything you can even think of, because we limit ourselves based on this closed-mindedness where we're trying to open the peripherals and broaden your worldview into something that it's capable of doing. And so I think that's where our discussion is going. So maybe if some of the students are listening on can just put some stuff down in the chat box, and maybe next week we can answer some of those questions in respects to that. And then we often wonder about, well, what good is it going to do for me? Because everybody has that attitude of entitlement. Well, you're doing it for the sake of others. And then once you realize the strengthening that it gives to you, and it's so unconditional, you don't do it because you're going to get it back tenfold. Yeah, no. You're doing it because you can. And then when you're unable to do it, then somebody else will be doing it for you. That's what you're teaching. That's what you're proliferating. That's what you're promulgating out there. So others will do that when you can no longer do it. Hey, because there's going to come a time when we won't be able to go in sweats. We won't be able to help people understand the importance of wuchekia, that what I call a heartfelt cry. Hey, all of these things, like when people call our songs prayer songs, what I like to call them is wakan yapi olowa. Make sense, Chie?
You bet.
Wakan yapi olowa. And it doesn't mean a prayer song. It means something beyond that. Not better. It's just beyond that, based on what he was talking about earlier about our understanding about the old people trying to convey their Indian thoughts into to where they become practical for those that are listening. But again, La Colia, Jikala, and like me, that's what I'm saying about me. Now, my brother, he's fluent in Lakota and Dakota, but me, I speak a little bit, but I utilize what I speak, but I still think like an Indian because I was taught that from my brother and Tushunga Saba, all my dad, everybody else around me helped me to understand that. And so Toshka Elijah, that's what I was trying to share with you. And I didn't want to impose on you, but I always share with you, think like an Indian, eh? But don't lose that thought as you're pursuing a more intellectual avenue, wishing to go forward with your education for that doctorate, eh? You see how that's cool, and that balances it out. And the aspirations of our students, the ones we're dealing with, they need to understand that as well. And applying that balance, acquiring the knowledge, but being able to sustain that understanding that we have as well. And then that common sense and that book sense, oh man, it's going to become better. It's going to be way better. What do you think, Chie? Hello?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's some nice comments that came up on the screen there. Yeah.
I can't even see them. So.
Yeah. But anyway, they're having a doings down in Vermilion on the 16th, where they're having prayers and stuff like that, and honorings for those loved ones that have passed away because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I'm going to that.
I'll hit you too.
I've been asked to come go to that. So it's going to be a emotional time, but geez, a lot of heartache and stuff. But that's healing. You have to. You have to go through the process.
Mm-hmm.
We're very fortunate. Our family, we haven't lost anybody close because of the COVID.
Yeah.
A lot of friends and relatives and past associates are all been affected by it, so they need our help. So
then
that's after we get back from Saskatoon.
Yeah. So now during that trip, I'll go and get you on the 1st. We'll do our business on the 2nd. Can you rest up a day? Because they'll put us up the next day. Okay.
Easy, no problem.
Yeah, and then I'll go golfing and you can rest up, and
or you just get some French bread, croissants, and I'll be happy.
Because they got that hotel right there on the golf course too, eh? Right next to where they're having that thing. So we'll get set up. We'll do. I got to send my biography in today.
If I hear somebody holler dope and my window breaks and I was doing
Okay. I think we're about done with our hour, Tushka, Elijah. You got any messages, anything you want to convey and all that good stuff? So
we got a few, I guess. We have registration is open for the summer semester at Fort Payne Community College. Again, it's free tuition and fees. So come on over to Student Services, register. If you're a brand new student, just go to fpcc.edu. You can call Student Services 406-768-6370. Get that process started. You can look at the schedule of classes online at fpcc.edu. Again, if you have any questions, just give us a call, shoot us an email. Take advantage of that. I believe classes start the third week in May. So definitely check that out. And then our schedule for the fall semester, those courses will be out very shortly as well. But other than that, we will see everybody next Thursday. Rain or shine, Buffalo Chasers podcast goes on. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Dopa, that's how you say for. Somebody said, how do you say for? Dopa. Dopa ke mitakipi.
Hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya 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 hey yo hey yo Fort Beck Community College Ukiyebino yo me too gashi dagush kashka yogi piano yo wata pebi Agik tabi ichachia ya bino hey yo hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey ha yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ha ya hey yo hey yo Fort Beck Community College Ukiyebino yo me too gashi dagush kashka yogi piano yo wata pebi agik tabi ichachia ya bino hey yo hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya yo hey ya yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ha ya hey yo Fort Beck Community College Ukiyebino yo me too gashi dagush kashka yogi piano yo wata pebi agik tabi ichachia ya bino hey yo hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey yo hey ya, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey ha ya, hey ha, hey ha ya, hey ha ya, hey ha ya, hey ha, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Fort Peck Community College, unki pino yo me to gashi dagush kashka yogi piano yo wata pepe hagik tabi ihachi ya pino hey yo.
Oh, May 6th. May 6th. Dex, that is the